So hydrogen's been around a long, long time. It has always been sort of that just out of reach technology. Now, that may be changing now that the federal government and some states, especially California, are practically shoveling money to those who are willing to take the plunge either on fuel cell trucks or hydrogen infrastructure development. Our guest today is Hyzon Motors CEO Parker Meeks. Parker has spent his career involved in the energy space, although his CEO title at Hyzon only became permanent recently. We'll get an update on Hyzon's plans for heavy-duty fuel cell trucks after these headlines. Colorado now has become the 8th state to follow California in the clean truck rule arena. It took about 2 years longer than planned, but Colorado is making good on a plan to follow the clean truck rule. There were 15 states in the District of Columbia that signed on in 2020 to go the Golden State's way. And now that the Biden administration has granted waivers to California to impose stricter emissions regulations than the EPA, some of the other MOU states might not be far behind. Crowdfunded electric truck startup Atlas Motors. Remember these guys? They were the ones that raised money through crowdsourcing. They are rebranding themselves as NXU to focus on batteries and electric infrastructure. Atlas is still the corporate name, but the company sees better prospects by focusing on fast charging battery technology instead of the more expensive development of an electric chassis for off-road commercial use. Atlas may come back to trucks, but like so many in the transportation electrification space, the company is short on money and hoped for $200 million investment so far has not come through. Finally, Toyota this week revealed its second-generation fuel cell stack aimed at heavy-duty trucks. The production will begin in Kentucky later this year, and it's a good bet the first taker will be Kenworth, which integrated Toyota's first-generation fuel cell trucks into T680 Class 8 models a couple of years ago. So be on the lookout for an announcement as soon as next week at the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo. So as the Toyota item suggests, action is advancing around fuel cells for heavy-duty trucks. Let's welcome today's guest, Parker Meeks, the leader of Hyzon Motors, a spin-off of Singapore's fuel cell technologies. Hyzon is not a precise definition of a startup because of that. Parker's career has been focused on energy. Prior to joining Hyzon, he worked in traditional energy, the decarbonization and energy transition, infrastructure, finance, and transportation. A lot of that was during 14 years at McKinsey & Company. Parker, welcome to Truck Tech.
Hey, Alan, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you. And let's start with McKinsey. You said something I thought was pretty funny. I dare you to repeat it.
Yeah, I know. Look, McKinsey was a tremendous place to start my career. 13 plus years at McKinsey. It's about 90 dog years based on the pace and lifestyle at that firm, but a tremendous start to really train new entrants to the workforce, and over time for me to lead global practices in energy infrastructure and transportation. So,
well, and I guess really that question begs itself is that if you do that much time and you're I still remember the old NPR thing about consultancy being on the one hand, on the other hand, how did working there prepare you for running the Hyzon business, which, as we'll discuss, is in a challenging field that has also been pretty slow to develop here in North America?
Absolutely. And when you look at the fundamentals of hydrogen today and fuel cell trucks and fuel cell technology, it's a technology that's ready, technology that works, a use case that has subsidy support behind it, that has customer support behind it. But companies like Hyzon need to scale. They need to scale efficiently, effectively, with high quality. And my career at McKinsey was helping companies of all sizes, from large companies trying to create new businesses, to put those businesses together with a strategy to execute and scale, to small privately owned or private equity owned companies that were looking to restructure themselves and grow. And actually, after I left McKinsey, I joined a firm called TRC, which is in total about $1 billion revenue, 6,000 person design and construction management firm. I led a major business for them, about 1,000 people across the country, and that was a restructure and pivot for growth. So my training in energy and infrastructure and restructuring and strategic growth from McKinsey and on to my P&L leadership at TRC has prepared me well. Coming to Hyzon was a decision driven by my excitement for the technology, my excitement for the positioning of real fuel cell tech to drive use cases with trucking as the first one, and an ecosystem like hydrogen, which again is ready to grow, with the right focus strategy.
Okay, good segue, because my first real question for you was around the momentum of hydrogen and fuel cells. It does seem to be growing. Is this just incentives talking, or is something more fundamental at play now?
I think it really is a fundamental shift. And what you see today versus what you see in the industry even 5 years ago, you see the right environment coming together. You have subsidy that's only increasing. The Inflation Reduction Act, for instance, in the US, the expanding subsidies in Europe, Germany, and other nations across Europe. You've got customers that want to make a difference. We don't need 100 customers to start. We need the right 10 fleets in each region that really want to make a difference and get going now. And you have technology that is ready. Our trucks have been on the road in trial in the US since March of 2022. People have seen the trucks we've put into service with customers in Europe, and those trucks do the work. It is a new use case in terms of trucking in a commercial application, relatively speaking, but fuel cell technology has been around for a long, long time. So it's different because every element of the ecosystem is motivated, the funding is there, the use case is ready. And so I really do think incentives help, but they're just the tip of the iceberg to get us going, similar to how wind and solar got their start as that technology scaled.
Sure. Now, you're one of the few companies that's building a single fuel cell large enough and powerful enough for commercial trucks. And not that others aren't doing something similar, but they're doing it differently. How does the Hyzon system differ from most of those that are nearing production, just like the fuel cell kit that Toyota announced this week?
And I'm really excited, Alan, to talk about that both today and at ACT next week. So what you're talking about, of course, is our 200 kilowatt single fuel cell system, which, to get the same power output, most, if not all, other companies are using two systems to get to the same power. And the benefits are quite simple. Single system has less balance of plant or components around it, which means less space, less volume to fit well in the application, lower cost, and as the system operates, easier to control to get to better fuel E efficiency. And Hyzon's able to accomplish this unique feat of a single 200 kilowatt fuel cell system through our technology, through our membrane electrode assembly, or MEA, through our bipolar plate design that produces a higher volumetric power density, which essentially is more power in a smaller package.
What's interesting to me, and I worked in fuel cells at General Motors, and of course, Hyzon took over the old Honeyway Falls operation, and then you've added a facility in Chicago as well. They weren't making fuel cells anywhere near that large, because obviously it was passenger car and passenger vehicle focused back in the day. And I think we're still waiting for that first GM fuel cell vehicle. But what are the advantages? You mentioned a couple of them in terms of cost, and you talked about balance of plant, which is kind of an insider term, but it's basically everything that sort of attaches to the stacks, I guess. So where are the advantages? Cost, maintenance. What else makes the big fuel cell work well in this space?
Yeah, and you're right. When I take the insider terminology away, imagine you have two fuel cells in the engine compartment, right? Each one of those fuel cell stacks is going to have its own componentry around it. So you've got double the air compressors and coolant lines and everything else. And controlling those two fuel cells together, imagine a car had two engines, right? The software that controls the car or the truck has to calibrate those two engines and have them run in sync. So it's simplification of control, simplification of the fuel efficiency that goes through it. It's a big impact on space, a big impact on cost. And I do think, additionally, when you look at maintenance over time, having a single system that's put together also has fewer components that could fail. So all this adds up to a more reliable, lower cost, lower weight as well, and better fitting solution.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the weight specifically, because when I talked to Chris Rovick at Toyota this week, I said, I'm kind of surprised you're still lashing together Toyota Mirai fuel cells to do this. He said, well, for right now, we're not far enough along. He said, third generation, you'll probably see a single, kind of heavier, a single property. But I think it's interesting that you are either the first or one of the first. I think there might be another one out there. Can't remember. But for right now, though, I'm sorry.
I said, it is something that is fairly unique. We will see others come, but In China, there are a couple that are trying to go this direction. Others have announced in the Western world that they've paused their 200 kilowatt program. So we're excited next week at ACT for people to come out and see the 200 kilowatt in action.
Yeah, I remember taking a picture when we were at the IAA in September back in Germany when Volvo showed its, Cellcentric, I believe is the name of the joint venture it has with Daimler. And they too are showing two fuel cells working together rather than a single unit. So it will be interesting to see what kind of advantage this provides you, assuming you get some people to put in the trucks. Your experience, though, Parker, and Hyzon's experience is largely in other global regions that suggest, these big trucks are really your target. I've seen some earlier shots of some, 54, was it 54,000 kg trucks and that sort of thing. You've made most of your news outside North America. You've got a fuel cell electric truck operation with DB Schenker in Germany. You've got plans for a fleet of fuel cells with an Australian grocery retailer. Why then does the U.S. seem to trail in fuel cell development and, more importantly, execution?
Yeah, so I think what you see in our strategy and our approach is the maturity of the relative markets when Hyzon was created, right? When you go back to 2019, 2020, Europe was already funded with subsidy customers that were ready to put trucks to work. Australia actually has been punching above its weight, even though they're behind in subsidy, with customers ready to pay the premium. And the U.S., though, we have developed at the pace that it's been ready to develop. So even though we haven't made as much public noise in the U.S., we've been busy. So our first trial started in the U.S. in March of 2022 with TTSI in drayage. That trial program has continued. We haven't announced as much about it. We've continued to build experience here in the U.S. on the conventional truck platform, both in the U.S. and north of the border in Canada. We've built experience in hot weather in the LA Basin in the summer, in cold weather in Edmonton, Alberta in the winter, in wet weather in Houston, my original hometown, in the rainy season. So the great news is, while we've been building experience and working with customers who want to get into the technology as funding's available, the funding environment's only gotten better. Again, with the Inflation Reduction Act coming on stream, with additional states signing up for the Clean Truck Rule, with additional funding pockets expanding through the legacy Volkswagen funding pools and others, you can literally do thousands of trucks in the U.S. on subsidy today and get close to diesel parity, depending on the cost of fuel. So the U.S. market is really prime, and it's one that was slower to start, but given all the advancements in legislation and subsidy availability and the great customer appetite that we see here, we do expect the U.S. to catch up very, very soon.
Okay, this is an important question. Probably should have been my first question for you. Are you a truck maker or are you a fuel cell maker that supplies fuel cells to truck makers? Or is it both?
The cop-out answer is a little bit of both, but the core of Hyzon is fuel cell technology, right? So we are a fuel cell technology, fuel cell powertrain-led organization. We are doing trucks today because the truck is an application that's ready to go in a capital-light model, right? Where third-party assemblers who assemble and upfit trucks from a range of technologies are partnering with us to assemble our trucks at scale. Fontaine Modification is one example in the U.S., who's our partner to assemble our trucks as we scale here. We have a third-party partner in Europe as well that we haven't announced yet, but that is going to be our assembly partner as we scale up there. So the core is the fuel cell technology. We've had to prototype the trucks and drive the transition and disrupt to make the market development go faster. But assembly, we're going to let others do. Fuel, we have partners to do that. We're going to keep optimizing and delivering the fuel cell in very tough, heavy-duty applications, starting with trucks.
Yeah, the other question related to that is how close are you still to your parent, to Fuel Cell Technologies in Singapore? I mean, I think it goes back to 2003 and thousands of fuel cells that operation has put out, mostly in Asia. How close are you still to those guys?
Yeah, so Horizon's still a supplier to us. They're still a R&D joint development partner. So we still work with Horizon in a few different capacities, and they're an important supplier partner to us, and one that we still certainly work with in various ways and fashions. Hyzon does stand on its own. We're standing up our fuel cell manufacturing facility in Chicago and in Bolingbrook. That's in prototyping stage today and ramping up well. We have our direct access to our markets in the U.S., Australia, and Europe, driving that forward, and we continue our collaboration in supply and in some joint development with Horizon.
Okay, good. All right, so here's where it gets a little trickier. I jokingly refer to it as a Budweiser hot seat that ESPN used to talk about. But with most companies like yours at this stage, Parker, there are financial questions, right? I mean, you're facing a number of business challenges, including an ongoing threat of delisting from the NASDAQ. Are you still working against the May 15th deadline to remain listed?
So as we announced publicly recently, we were granted our stay from the NASDAQ through May 15th to get back into compliance, and we're working every day as hard as we can to meet that May 15th date.
And I mean, it is one of those things that we've seen, and again, just have to talk about your cash. It seems pretty tight. Your market cap is a little under 200 million. Share price today really doesn't matter, but it's less than $1. And that's another thing that is sort of a trigger for the NASDAQ. If you go 30 days, below that, they can also, I guess, begin delisting processes. Do you have a line of sight to new capital to keep going, or where are you there?
So I can't say a whole lot on the financial specifics at this point, given the quiet period that we are in. But what I can say is that we continue to drive forward our business plan. We have gone through and reset the company, the strategy, as I took over leadership back in August as interim CEO and permanent in March. And we're quite excited about our prospects, about the 200 kilowatt fuel cell system that we're driving manufacturing scale up in Chicago, our three focused vehicle platforms, the conventional in the US, the cab over in Europe, and the rigid platform in Australia. And we're thankful to have our customers with us driving our trial program into commercialization. So we will have more news on those fronts as we get back into compliance with our filings, heading towards that May 15th deadline. We've already submitted several of our delayed filings, and there's more to come in line with that timing. And I look forward to speaking more about that once we're able to, as those filings come in.
Well, I think Parker, the issue of runway is constantly out there. Almost everybody we talk to has some level of runway, even with good partners. And one of the things I guess that is out there, others have done it. We're seeing it occasionally, and that is the reverse split to sort of get the number of shares to the point where you can meet the NASDAQ requirement. Is that something y'all are contemplating?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I can't really speak on specifically, but what I can say is, the company is well aware of our financial position and the requirements that we have with our listing, and we continue to work with our board to drive the right strategy forward. But again, we're focused on executing our plan, executing our technology-led path forward, and we're confident in our ability to deliver that.
Okay, well, you've been around enough businesses to presumably know what it takes to get this stuff done, and if it's doable at all. Now, you were not at Hyzon when it went public back in, I guess it would have been July of 2020, and that was, of course, a special.
I just joined, actually. I joined in June of 2021, and we went public in July of 2021. But I was
okay. So you were there.
Of that process.
All right, then my question is perhaps more fair than it would have been. When you went public, VS back with the Conversation Plus, you were there, so you must have supported it. But given current circumstances surrounding, most of the SPAC-based companies, we've had, last I looked, 11 filed this year versus, more than 600 in 2021. Would you have taken the same path to entering the North American market?
So, look, I think that the path the company took was one that was the right strategy at the time. And with any strategy, there's always going to be change, right? Any plan that's put on paper, whether it's a company strategy, my old world of energy construction projects, construction plans, you have to be, secure and set in analyzing your base plan and then ready to deviate. So the company has worked hard to try and execute the original plan that was put in place. And we continue to, deviate that plan as the market changes and do our best to deliver value for the company and deliver the best plan to take this technology and to put it forward in well-designed and well-built trucks. So I'm I'm happy with where we're at in terms of our strategy and our plan that we're delivering going forward. I'm really excited about the technology progress that we've made on the 200 kilowatt and our ability to talk about that at ACT next week, and the progress on the three core truck platforms that we're focused on, and look forward to being able to talk more about that progress and that plan as we come back into filing compliance and are able to speak more openly.
Yeah, well, you've got something that others don't have, and obviously, you're not the only one, that's struggling in the fuel cell and hydrogen space right now, and we certainly want to see you succeed, especially with. I can't wait to see this 200 kilowatt powertrain myself. So let me ask you: you've got a joint venture with Hyliion, and of course. Thomas Healy was going to be with us. He had to pull out at the last minute. And this was originally going to be a little bit more about this. But I guess you could tell us a little bit about what you're working on with Hyliion. They haven't even shown us their first Hypertruck ERX yet. And you're kind of plan number 3. You're round 3, unless they may move things around a little bit. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, we're really excited about the partnership. So it really is bringing the strengths of two companies together to a product. As I said before, Hyzon is fuel cell technology led, and the 200 kilowatt fuel cell is the core foundation of the value proposition and the competitive mode for Hyzon. And Hyliion is really good at electric drive and the powertrain that, of course, they've been doing to date with the CNG led power plant. But the adaptation of that with a Hyzon 200 kilowatt fuel cell is one that we believe together will provide a product which is a great truck. So we're excited to collaborate with Hyliion. Thomas and his team we have come to know very, very well. We are very excited about their approach to engineering and assembling the truck with our collaboration on the fuel cell software, and the integration of that. And we're looking forward to together, bringing that truck, that first truck out to show the market what that combined product can be. And as Hyzon, we think it's really a great example of the value that Hyzon can provide. Again, leveraging our technology, putting that technology to work, and we're putting our own trucks together and putting those to market, which we're very confident in. And we're also, open to collaborating with other leaders, to put that same technology to work where there's a complementary skill set there.
Yeah, let me ask you. We just saw a merger, and I think it finished up in February in the LiDAR space between Alster and not Luminar, the other one. I'm sorry, but it was a merger, and it was two companies that both had pretty disparate customer bases and that sort of thing. What kind of future do you see with Hyliion? Strictly a supplier relationship, or perhaps something more?
Yeah, I mean, look, what we're focused on right now is putting this first truck together, right? And so, as that truck comes together, we're focused on taking a product that we think on a combined basis brings a lot of strengths to a truck, which is going to really do really, really well. So I can't really comment on the future beyond that and what where that could go. But we are quite excited about this truck and about the relative strengths that we're putting together into this first collaboration.
Well, this is interesting because I can remember early days with Thomas right after, they went public. He really didn't have many good things to say about hydrogen. It always, he kind of took that attitude that it was down the road somewhere. And, when the price of hydrogen came down, maybe they'd think about it. And I've watched his attitudes change over time. And I've pointed that out to him that, and now he's actually got a plan for something. Do you see your project possibly leapfrogging something else they're doing? Or do you think that it'll just sort of take its place where it's supposed to?
Yeah, I mean, I won't comment on Hyliion's strategy. And we have a lot of respect for Thomas and his team. It's a great company that has a great approach to, driving their core strategy forward. Their electric drive powertrain is really the reason why we got so excited about a potential, Hyzon fuel cell combined with the Hyliion, truck. So right. We're excited to see Hyliion taking the step to collaborate with us. We're excited to see our aligned view on the potential for this hydrogen truck. And I think it just shows, that the hydrogen truck application certainly has a clear, leading role in our view in the Class 8 category, particularly where we're taking heavy loads a long, long way.
Yeah. Listen, Parker, that's all the time we've got today. Thanks so much for being here. Folks, next week, Truck Tech will be live with a special 1 hour episode from the ACT Expo in Anaheim, California. Joining me live will be Eric Neandros, who's the CEO of Neandros Associates. They're the consultancy behind this event that's grown exponentially, so much that it had to leave Long Beach behind and move down to Anaheim, or out to Anaheim, I guess. We'll also catch up with Daniel Barrow from Re Automotive, Phil Horton from Volterra, and Ken Ramirez, Executive Vice President of Hyundai Commercial Vehicles, which, by the way, is going to be playing very quickly here in the hydrogen space. So thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time, and tune in again. Thank you.